While many war movies feature plenty of drama and action, there are some that focus on the comedy and absurdity of war. While dramatic war stories can highlight the tragedy people experience, comedic stories about war can emphasize the character's humanity. Comedic movies set during war can offer unique perspectives that dramas don't get to explore. Comedic war movies can put characters in absurd situations, or they might satirize real ones. Some movies such as The Great Dictator satirize real people and events and offer real-time commentary on current events. Other films such as MASH were based on real experiences that showcase the absurdity of war and how many of those who live through war rely only on their humour as a coping mechanism. Welcome to Popcorn Program, here's our list of the 11 funniest war movies ever. Pop pop! At number 11 we have 1941 from 1979, directed by Steven Spielberg. While Steven Spielberg is more well known for his war dramas, 1941 is a war comedy that represents an earlier look at his talents as a director. The movie follows the panic that gripped the Los Angeles area in the aftermath of the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. 1941 is loosely based on real events that happened in the US during World War II. The movie stars Dan Aykroyd, Ned Beatty, John Belushi, and Christopher Lee, amongst others. What makes 1941 so funny is the fact that it leans into the chaos of its story. This hilarious ensemble heightens the outrageous premise and elevates the story's comedy. As funny as 1941 is, it is also surprisingly a poignant look at how easily it is for people to be whipped into a frenzy when they are given incorrect or incomplete information. The gags and action sequences featured in the movie only underline this comedy. In number 10 we have Catch-22 from 1970, directed by Mike Nichols. Catch-22 is based on the 1961 novel of the same name by Joseph Heller. The story is set on a fictional base in the Mediterranean during World War II. The movie stars Alan Arkin as American bombardier captain John Yassarin. Yassarin is known for flying dangerous missions but looks to escape after watching his colleagues die in combat. As his schemes to protect himself become more convoluted, those around him also take increasingly extreme measures to meet Yassarin's unrealistic combat targets. Catch-22 captures the folly of war by making fun of its premise. The entire story is a meditation on the quote from one of the characters, Doc Danica, played by Jack Gilford: "An airman would have to be crazy to fly more missions, and if he were crazy, he would be unfit to fly." Each of the characters goes through so much to confront the reality in which they find themselves. Catch-22 highlights the lengths that people would go to process the realities of war. In number 9 we have Good Morning Vietnam from 1987, directed by Barry Levinson. Good Morning Vietnam is also loosely based on the true story of Adrian Croner, played by Robin Williams, who is a DJ with the Armed Forces Radio Service. The movie highlights Croner's experience while being stationed in Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Good Morning Vietnam follows Croner as he goes from a mostly apolitical DJ focused on playing music for the troops to a man who is profoundly disturbed by the violence that he witnesses. What makes Good Morning Vietnam such an effective comedy, though, is the fact that his story is told by an outsider. The movie relies on Williams' incredible talent to tell the story of a man who fought to maintain his humanity while witnessing war up close and being censored by his government. The horrors of war featured in Good Morning Vietnam are made all the more personal because of how innocent the protagonist is. In number 8 we have Jojo Rabbit from 2019, directed by Taika Waititi. Jojo Rabbit is a satirical story set in World War II. It follows Jehona's Jojo Betzler, played by Roman Griffiths Davis, a young German boy who speaks to an imaginary version of Adolf Hitler, played by Taika Waititi. Jojo is deeply indoctrinated by Nazi ideals in the Hitler Youth and desperately tries to prove himself despite not being taken seriously by his peers. Jojo Rabbit follows Jojo as he grows up and realizes the harsh truths about war and his country's involvement with it. Jojo Rabbit is an effective commentary on war because it never ceases to mock Hitler and his horrific ideology. Jojo's relationship with his mother Rosie, played by Scarlett Johansson, is what grounds him in the midst of the chaos of war. Additionally, meeting Elsa, played by Thomasin McKenzie, the Jewish teenager his mother is hiding, gives him much needed perspective on the war. This perspective is what elevates the movie's comedy and makes the mockery even more hilarious. And sort of just makes the film work. In number 7 we have Kelly's Heroes from 1970, directed by Brian G. Hutton. Kelly's Heroes is a comedy heist that takes place in World War II. The story follows a group of American soldiers as they go AWOL and attempt to rob a French bank of its German gold. Kelly's Heroes follows the group as they get into increasingly perilous situations as they work towards completing the mission that they've given themselves. The movie stars Clint Eastwood, Terry Savalas, Donald Sutherland, and Don Rickles, amongst others. The humour featured in Kelly's Heroes works because it serves as a commentary on military leadership in World War II. The story combines realistic battlefield action and a fun heist that puts the movie's characters in fun and chaotic situations. Kelly's Heroes uses its heist to showcase the humanity of those who experienced war and how they needed direction even from eccentric leaders. The movie is also humorous because it shows how disconnected its characters are from the rest of the war. In number 6 we have Tropic Thunder from 2008, directed by Ben Stiller. Though it's highly controversial by design, perhaps even offensive for some audiences, the hilarity of Ben Stiller's satire Tropic Thunder is undeniable. The Meet the Parents star delivered a powder keg of observations of the entertainment industry in this war comedy, where actors who became entangled in a real violent conflict. Stiller himself stars alongside Jack Black, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Cruise, and Jay Baruchel, but it's undeniably Robert Downey Jr. who steals the show. The same year that Iron Man reignited the actor's mainstream appeal, he earned an Oscar nod for his portrayal of 5-time Oscar winner Kirk Lazarus. In number 5 we have Dr. Strangelove from 1964, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Dr. Strangelove is a political satire that is considered a classic. While the movie is set during the Cold War, it is pointed commentary on warfare as a whole. The movie is loosely based on the novel Red Alert by Peter George. The movie follows a mentally unstable American general who orders a preemptive nuclear attack against the Soviet Union. As everyone struggles to deal with the fallout of the decision, the American president and his advisors are faced with decisions that will impact the entire world. Dr. Strangelove is another example of a movie that uses an outrageous hypothetical to tell a compelling story. The movie relies on its characters to tell a wild story that taps into the fears so many Americans had during the Cold War. The fact that the movie uses absurd humour to get its point across is part of what makes it so compelling. Dr. Strangelove uses an unsettling tone to amp up its humour and make viewers consider uncomfortable truths about the possibility of nuclear war. In number 4 we have The Great Dictator from 1940, directed by Charlie Chaplin. The Great Dictator is a movie that was written, directed and produced by Charlie Chaplin. Chaplin also starred in the movie as Adonai Heinkel, a parody of Adolf Hitler and a Jewish barber who loses his memory after his experience as a soldier in World War I. The movie was an anti-fascist rallying call, and was meant to as a stark criticism of such leaders as Hitler and Mussolini who were wreaking havoc on Europe at the time. What makes A Great Dictator such a sharp comedy is the fact that Chaplin plays characters who represent the oppressed and the oppressors of Europe during World War II. The classic Charlie Chaplin style of humour is underlined by the stirring speech at the end of the movie that was a call to action. The Great Dictator is another example of a movie that uses humour to ruthlessly mock the evils of war and the leaders who were responsible for such destruction. If you can't go and find out the whole film, just go onto YouTube and watch the end speech. It is really, really good. In number 3 we have Stripes from 1981, directed by Ivan Reitman. Stripes is a comedy starring Bill Murray as John Winger, a taxi driver who enlists in the army after his life becomes a chaotic mess. His laid-back attitude puts him in the crosshairs of his instructors during basic training. During his stint in the armed forces, he has a whirlwind romance and makes some equally oddball friends along the way. Stripes follows John's story as he is deployed to Europe and has to navigate a potentially dangerous military situation. Stripes is an example of a movie that is so funny because of its star. Murray pulls off this character who would ordinarily be completely unsympathetic. However, seeing the American military through John's eyes is both hilarious and poignant. Stripes shows how silly military training and order can be. The fact that John never takes himself or his training all that seriously makes him a protagonist worth cheering for. In number 2 we have Three Kings from 1999, directed by David Russell. Three Kings is another example of a comedic war film centered around a group of soldiers going on a heist. Specifically, the movie follows American soldiers who remain in Iraq following the Gulf War. Three Kings stars George Clooney, Mark Wahlberg and Ice Cube. These soldiers are caught up in the 1991 Iraq uprisings and are convinced by their leader that there is a map that leads them to stolen gold. What makes Three Kings a truly effective comedy though is the fact that it showcases characters who are disillusioned with war and have nothing to lose. This makes the humour harsher and more compelling. Ultimately, the movie makes fun of the overconfident American soldiers who felt entitled to any resources available in the aftermath of war. The fact that no one faces any consequences for their action just makes the movie all the funnier. And number 1 we have Mask from 1970, directed by Robert Altman. MASH is based on the book by Richard Hooker. which detailed his own experiences as a surgeon during the Korean War. The movie follows the staff of an American Mobile Army surgical hospital. The movie inspired the creation of the TV series, which ran for 11 seasons and is still considered one of the best TV shows ever made. Gary Berghoff appears in both the movie and the TV series as company clerk Raider O'Reilly. Mash's humour comes from the fact that it leans into the boredom that is often a hallmark of war. From the beginning of the movie, it is clear that the staff of the 4077 are listless. This leads them to use their imaginations to come up with ways to keep themselves entertained. Mash's humour also comes from the fact that the characters are trying to distract themselves from the chaos around them. And there you have it, there is our list. So what do you think? What is the funniest war film you have ever seen? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you're new around here. That's all for now, so I'd like to thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Pop pop!